So hello everyone. You're very welcome to the Workplace Wellbeing Ireland live webinar. So it's our first live webinar. So you're all very welcome this afternoon. So we're here in partnership with Irish Life Health and AJ Products. So a big shout out to our partners. It's fantastic to see so many registrations for this afternoon. The capacity actually for the webinar is 500. And we're actually incredibly close to that limit. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. So if you've been to one of our events before, or one of our community gatherings, or whether this is your first time, regardless of that, you're all very, very welcome. So we've got a really great panel ahead of us today. I'm going to kick off with a very short introduction. I'll introduce myself, I'll introduce the community, and I'll introduce our partners, and then we'll get straight into our panel discussion. So I've tried to make this live webinar as interactive as possible and as similar to our in-person gatherings, if you like. So if you'll notice just down below there's a chat function. So think of that chat function as your networking or your mingling. So that's your opportunity to say hello to your fellow attendees, to chat about what's going on, to comment, and all of that. So do please use that and say hello. You'll also see down there in the same taskbar, there's a Q&A function. So that's your opportunity to pose questions directly to myself and to the panel. So nobody else can see those questions. So please do use that as well. And if we have time later on in the session, I'll try and get to as many of those questions as possible. And thank you, by the way, for replying to my email and for submitting so many questions in advance. So I'm loaded up here with lots of questions. So I'll get the ball rolling with those. So first of all, yeah, I'll get started. And I hope everyone is safe and well at home or wherever you are at the moment. I'll kick off. So I, as well as setting up the Workplace Wellbeing Ireland community, as well as that, I do a few other things. So I'm also the course director in the postgraduate certificate in workplace wellness at Tangent. That's in Trinity College in Dublin. So really enjoying that, and it's our first year of that at the moment. I'm big into education and promoting workplace wellbeing. So I have an online training course as well. And that's actually starting this Tuesday evening, and the very last few places are remaining on that. So if that sounds interesting, you can drop me a line after this and we can chat about that. So here's something I'm really excited about as well, my brand new podcast. So one of the things I've been able to do while we've been kind of, shut down and working from home is to kind of concentrate on new projects. So I have about half of season 1, as I'm calling it, of my new podcast pretty much recorded and ready to go. So I'm going to launch that next week. So, forget about your Netflix and Disney Channel and Ozark, the new season of Ozark or Tiger King or any of that nonsense. It's the Work Well podcast. Season 1 is where it's at. So I'll be launching that next week. So do watch this space for more details on that. And I wasn't nearly busy enough with all of that. So I also, for the last couple of years, I've been running a social enterprise called ParkHit. And the big, hairy, audacious goal with ParkHit is to bring free resistance training to every county and community in Ireland. So I'm really enjoying that, really enjoying all of these projects, and they're all kind of keeping me out of trouble at the moment, which is fantastic. So the community itself then, so a little bit about the community. So I set up Workplace Wellbeing Ireland because, when I was starting out in this area, I was having really great conversations with people and organizations that were doing interesting things in the area of workplace wellbeing. But there was no forum for sharing those kind of learnings. There was also no forum to ask questions or, questions as simple as where do we start or how do we improve upon this area. So the community is a forum for that, for sharing, for learning, and for bringing kind of speakers and panelists and organizations together to all contribute and to share and to learn. And so there's been really fantastic momentum in the community to date, which is really great. Nice venues, great attendances, and really informed and engaging speakers as well. And this live webinar is just a continuation of that. And one thing that I think has been a real key factor in supporting the momentum with the community has been the values, so the community values. And I think this is what really makes the community unique. And I introduced these values at our very first event back in September 2018. And I'm delighted to say, the community really does, all the members really do kind of live and breathe these. So I'll just quickly go through them, and there's only 3 of them. Three really, really simple values, and it's that sharing piece again. So sharing without expecting anything in return. It's, you know, having fun and respecting everybody. So we talk about some serious issues, but we have fun at the same time while we respect everybody. And then it's making friends, not contacts. So, you know, we don't kind of shove business cards in people's faces. It's more about those long-term, meaningful connections and relationships developed over time. So that's the community. And as you'll have noticed, this webinar is totally free to attend for participants. All of those events, all of our previous events have been completely free. We have an online forum which you can join, and you can, you know, post questions. All of that is completely free. And the reason I'm able to keep it free is with thanks to our wonderful partners. So I just want to give them a very quick mention now. And I'd like to welcome as well our brand new partners, Irish Life Health. So it's been a real pleasure working with Jacinta and the entire team at Irish Life Health over the last couple of weeks and months to bring them on board. And I'm delighted that they've joined up with Workplace Wellbeing Ireland for the entire year of 2020. So I really appreciate their support. And I mean, if the events were good up to now, which I think they were, I mean, with Irish Life's input and, you know, support and their knowledge in this area, it's really, really exciting where we can go from here. So a big thank you to Jacinta and the team for all their support. And I know that Irish Life Health are doing really great work supporting their customers and clients at this moment in times of COVID-19. So be sure to check out their website, irishlifehealth.ie, for more detail on the great work they're doing at the moment. Also, big shout out to my long-term partner, AJ Products, who've been with me since last year. You know, we went on a really great nationwide tour last year. And, you know, AJ have been supporting me for a long time now, and they really are just a really great business. And Tanya and Paul are incredibly hardworking there. And they're quite a small business as well, to be perfectly honest. And I know, like a lot of businesses out there at the moment, they're facing significant challenges. And it just so happens that AJ Products do have like a really excellent range of home office furniture, ergonomic office furniture. So if that is something that's on your radar at the moment, and it could well be, given that a lot of us are working from home at the moment, please do consider them. They have an excellent website, you know, a couple of clicks and the product can be delivered to your door. And they've got really great promotions on, especially around the home office furniture at the moment. So please do check them out. Okay, that's my introduction pretty much done. So I'd love to get, I can see some interaction coming in on the chat there. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but I will do. But I want to bring some of the attendees and some of the participants on board now and kind of get you engaged if I can. So let me see if I can do this now. Let me see if I can bring you guys in. I need to stop sharing. So I have a poll, a really simple poll with 3 questions. So first of all, I'd just love to get a bit of a background on where everybody is coming from, maybe a little bit about your role, but also then I'm posing a question as well. And it's just an interesting question. I'd love to see where we all feel we're going in the area of well-being, given what's going on at present. So you should be seeing a poll that's coming up in front of you now. So I'll give you about 30 seconds or so to answer that question, those 3 questions. So 3 questions: what best describes your current role or your position? Another one, where are you based? And then the final question is, this is the one I'm really curious about. We could start it in kind of it might be the topic for a future webinar, and that is, has well-being in the workplace moved up the priority list as a result of COVID-19? So I'm seeing some interesting figures coming in. I'm not sure if it's coming up on screen yet, but I think I can show it on screen once everyone has voted. So I'll just give you another couple of seconds there. Well, and I'm seeing a really high percentage of votes here, guys. 80% of people online have voted so far. So I'll just give you another 10 seconds there, and then I'll end the polling. Fantastic, we're nicely over 80%. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll now. And let me see if I can share those results. So hopefully you should be able to see those results. So pretty much 50% from a HR background there, so no surprise there. And so well-being leaders, well represented, as our senior managers as well. Excellent. So a percentage of self-employed and some other. Okay, and so Leinster strongly represented, Munster. We've got 3 people from outside of Ireland, so you're very welcome to the call. And okay, like, you know, from what I do, I'm really glad to see that response to the third question. So has it moved up the priority list? Yes. So I'm really pleased to see that. And I think there's been a real focus on this. You know, of all the things that we've been focused on in the last weeks and months, I'm hearing a lot of organizations trying to kind of refocus on well-being activities and supporting mental health of their employees and making sure they're getting enough physical health. So really great to see that. So I think that's definitely something we'll revisit in future webinars. So thank you for your contributions there. I'm going to get into our panel discussion now. And so our theme is, how can organizations support their people at this time? And how can they prepare for welcoming them back to the workplace? So I'm going to look at this in two levels. We look at it from the organizational perspective and then the individual perspective as well. So we'll start at the organizational level. So Catherine, if I might come to you first. So Catherine O'Flynn is a partner and head of the Employment and Benefits team in William Fry and chairperson of the Employment and Equality Law Committee of the Law Society. She is one of the diversity and inclusion partners in William Fry and is also involved in the mentoring program there. So Catherine, first of all, thank you for joining the webinar this afternoon.
Thank you, Brian.
How are you at the moment? I was going to ask you, is it kind of business as usual, albeit from home? But it actually looks like you're in Claire Byrne's shed there at the moment.
Yeah, she was very kind and let me borrow it just for the webinar. Yeah, I'm getting that comment quite a bit. This is my unconverted attic, which has been transformed into my home office with the help of our IT team. So it's great that I have a nice dedicated space to work, you know, which we're all facing. And it helps me distinguish the professional from the personal, which I think is really good for our mental health. The problem is, though, it doesn't have a door, so I can't guarantee that we won't have any visitors joining us this morning, but they've been warned. So hopefully they're happily watching Disney Plus at the moment. But yeah, for William Fry, it's business as usual, albeit at home. My team, we've all been working from home since Friday the 13th of March, so unlucky for some. And it's working well, you know, as I said, it's a team effort. Very lucky to have, you know, an excellent support team in William Fry, from IT through to our wellbeing team, our HR team, you know, so it's been a real collaborative effort and business as usual insofar as we can, yeah.
And so you're adapting to the change as best you can. Any specific supports that you've put in place for employees since Friday the 13th?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's been evolving, you know, because I guess although it was quite sudden for the majority of staff to have to work from home, so quite a sudden transition, and also for managers, quite a sudden transition to manage a distributed workforce. We had been doing a fair bit of planning in the background, so you know, we had been making sure that all our employees understood how to access the system remotely, so we were sending reminders in that regard, and we were doing a fair bit of testing on the IT side of things. And of course, we'd been told to bring our laptops home with us for a number of weeks before we had to do the big transition. And HR did a big drive to make sure they had everyone's up-to-date contact details. So it was great that we had that done in the background to help the transition work smoothly. And then since we've been working from home, as I said, it is kind of an evolving feast. We're learning as we go. What we did was carry out a staff survey to see how the staff are feeling. So happily, the majority of employees said they were feeling good and feeling positive. But of course, there were issues that they needed more support on. So we have been offering more targeted support to working parents, say, for example, who are facing their own struggles, of course, and also carers of relatives, and also people who work alone. So trying to target support and send out weekly updates that cover a matter like health and well-being and the need to really look after ourselves during these very challenging times.
Okay, yeah, so some really useful supports there in addition to what you would normally do. And have you been doing anything in terms of engagement, trying to encourage engagement with the remote workforce?
Yeah, definitely. So within my own team, the Employment and Benefits team, we held a virtual bake-off a couple of weeks ago. And it was nice. We chose a charity that was close to the hearts of many of us in the team, which is the Alzheimer's Society. So it made us all feel, you know, that we were doing something positive there for some of our relatives. And we did raise, you know, quite a large amount of money, but it was also good fun. Some of the cupcakes had little teeny tiny toilet rolls made out of icing paper on top of them, and so it was quite on theme. But it was also good because some of my team, some of our new trainees, I had never actually met before we went out to work remotely. So that brings its own challenges, both for me and for the trainees who have never met the team, you know, and in normal days, you'd be in and out of each other's offices all day, every day. So that broke the ice nicely. And we're also continuing to support one of our other charity partners who is the Jack and Jill Foundation. And so if I can maybe just give a little plug for them, because the art sale, the Incognito public art sale, starts tomorrow, and the art is available online at incognito.ie, and it really is a fantastic initiative. They're postcard sized paintings that you can buy, and then you don't find out who the artist was until you buy it and you look at the other side. So it could have been painted by Bono, or it could have been painted by one of my colleagues. But either which way, you get yourself a lovely piece of art to brighten up your new workspace at home, and it also goes to a very good charity. So we're continuing with those drives. And also, as I said, we're sending out these bulletins and supports where we can, pointing our people to the relevant webinars. And we're also going to be looking at more kind of physical challenges as well as looking after the mental well-being.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love the way you've tied in there your kind of your engagement, making it fun and keeping colleagues engaged, but for a good cause as well. Then the Bake Off, and then the Incognito is actually, it's an excellent initiative as well. I've seen that over the last few years. And yeah, I know Bono has a painting. I think Bruce Springsteen might have a painting in there, or he certainly has over the years. Yeah. So that's definitely well worth investing in, and for a really good cause as well, as you mentioned, the Jack and Jill Foundation. So thank you, Catherine. We'll come back to you shortly, but thank you for that. Might move to a different industry now, the construction industry. I'll bring in Ian Lynch. So Ian is the head of safety, health and wellbeing at Keating Construction, where he recently developed the employee wellbeing program. And Keating were the first construction company in Ireland to successfully achieve the IBEC Keep Well mark. Currently completing his postgrad in workplace wellbeing at NUIG. And in his spare time, Ian is a county councillor, community activist, and voluntary search and rescue member. So Ian, thank you for joining the webinar this afternoon.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, you're very welcome. So similar to you, so how are you? And is it, I guess you're kind of in an administration role. You're working from home there as normal, are you?
Yeah, look, for me, I suppose like Catherine, I have the luxury of having my own space to work from home. So I'm kind of, I suppose, in a good place that way compared to some of my colleagues who are having the challenge of trying to differentiate between the workspace and the living space and handling the kids in the house and that. So for me, so far, it's been quite good. I've enjoyed the extra time with having the kids, and they're outside the window looking in at me at a minute. And it's just the extra bit of time with them has been great, you know, even if it's just a half an hour for lunch. But so far, it's been good. I think as a company, it's very new to us. You know, the idea of remote working for construction wasn't really something that we would have done before. Maybe the odd day here and there, someone might have taken a day out of the office and worked from home, but as an organisation to do it, it's been a challenge for us. It's been a change. But so far, I think we're rising to the challenge, and I suppose that's one of the big things about what's happening. As an organisation, everyone's coming together, but as a community, even though we're staying apart, we're coming together, and as a nation, it's really about how to best in people, and it's been very encouraging to see some of the stuff that's been taking part within the communities and nationally. So it's been great that way. So it's been an adjustment, but an adjustment we're making quite well.
And how are you managing the workforce there? Because I imagine you've got quite a mixed workforce there. You'll have your office-based staff, but then obviously your construction staff. Are the office staff working reasonably normally, but and the construction staff, have they completely stopped everything?
Yeah, it's been quite a mix. I suppose, like Catherine, we started off looking at the whole possibilities. I suppose maybe 2 weeks before we got shut down. And our MD put out an email to everyone saying, look, this is what's happening. we're putting a plan in place, but our plan focused on to try and make sure we could continue working. So to try and keep the sites open, to try and keep the offices open, and to make sure people hadn't got downtime. And then it happened all of a sudden, and we realised that while we were so focused on making sure we had work for people, we didn't actually concentrate on how do we going to go to work. And then within a matter of hours, we see the challenges coming in, you know, and when someone had work to do from home, it wasn't practical to do that from home. And they were under pressure, but the big thing about it was the engagement process through has been quite good. 2 weeks up to it was every 2-3 days we were engaging with everyone engaged their teams. And as we got into this change, this new norm, we were speaking to our staff to see, well, is it suiting them? And for a lot of people, it wasn't, you know. So some have gone in short time, some have taken extended holidays, extended parental leave. Some have decided, look, it's actually easier not to work for the next couple of weeks and take the subsidy. We've been lucky that some of our sites have been considered critical work, so they're back to work. They were the big challenge for us, was how we keep the sites going on the labour side of it. The management side have been okay, they can work from home, preparing for when we do start up again. So it's been a mixed bag, but it's been, I suppose, it's been quite interesting to see the stages of change throughout this, because when there's the severity of I suppose, it wasn't known, there was an air of excitement about this idea of working from home, because it would have been new to us. So a lot of us were quite looking forward to it. And all of a sudden, you know, we were at home and all of a sudden, yeah, okay, we're here now, we're going to be happy enough with this. Week 2, not quite as comfortable as we thought we were going to be working at home. Week 3, we want out, we want back to the office, we want to meet people. And it's the meeting people that's been a real surprise for us. When we speak every single day to our teams, not work related, just to check in to see how they're going, because it's changing that quick. We're finding every day, and people are lonely, and that's kind of a hard word to say when you talk about your employees being lonely. We normally discuss that as in isolated, which is a nice soft word and it's a buzzword at the minute, but loneliness is a lot different. And they've missed the people, they've missed the engagement, and they've missed the fun at work. So that's been a big one. We didn't really see that coming, because with technology we thought we'd stay connected, but we're actually disconnected, even though we can be more connected. So there's a lot of change, but it's been quite a learning curve for us.
Well, that's great to hear, though, that your colleagues feel comfortable enough that they can say that they are lonely, that they're feeling lonely. And that's powerful. It's a psychologically safe space if they're comfortable enough to say that to you.
Yeah, and I think that's been the engagement process throughout this has been very good. And I think in Catherine's role, I suppose the diversity and inclusion has been, our industry is typically male, so I suppose the female side of the industry, it's still of how people want to share their home life experience with their employer, and this has forced that upon us, because you don't want to ask questions of how they're managing at home, how they're getting on with the kids, because you don't want to be seen to I suppose, pigeonhole people. But now they've come forward to say this, and they might have been apprehensive about how they were going to say this, and now that they've said it and we've reacted in a positive way, openness and transparency, which has really worked well. I think people are more open to talk to us about heaven. As an organisation, we're well, look, let's try this and see, does it work for you and does it work for us? So it's been very good that way, the learning curve, and that's been great for us.
Okay, great stuff. Well, thank you for that, Ian. And so, speaking of people, and great to hear that such a positive response from Keating and from William Fry. I'll turn to you, Dr. Rowe. Dr. Mark Rowe is a practicing GP for over 20 years, whose area of expertise is lifestyle medicine. Dr. Rowe advocates lifestyle change as the best medicine for burnout prevention and real vitality. By incorporating his principles of self-care with his extensive medical experience, he enables lasting positive change in people and their organizations. So Mark, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Brian. Delighted to be here. Can I just pick up firstly on Ian's point there about loneliness, because of course, loneliness is the most terrible poverty, and when people are, you know, socially isolated and physically distanced at home, a lot of people are feeling lonely, and that's having a very negative impact on people's mental well-being. It's increasing negative stress, anxiety, and you know, I think when you are lonely as well, you are much more susceptible to the negative contagion from social media. So it's just something to be very, very mindful of, to make sure that you do stay socially connected. It's never been more important to reach out and have friends and a support structure around you that's going to really encourage you to, if not be at your best, to allow you to get through this really, really challenging time. You know, Brian, I wear two hats. One hat, I'm a GP. My practice is at the Waterford Health Park, and I always say how lucky and grateful I am to work with such an amazing team of people. There's about 25 of us. And, you know, since this all started, we've been working in two ways. Firstly, you know, we've got the personal protective equipment. We're seeing suspect cases. We're triaging our patients on the phone, seeing people as best we can. So I'm very proud of the effort of my team and the wider healthcare community in terms of what we're doing to try and, you know, put this pandemic back in its box, as it were. And then secondly, you know, in my work with organizations, I do feel that in these challenging times, it's never been more important to really communicate clearly and consistently, to really connect with your people as often as possible, to Ian's point about combating loneliness effectively. I think leaders need to be reaching out to their people much more often, even if it's just to check in and see how people really are, because caring is so important, and for people to really understand that you really care how things are for them. And as Catherine mentioned earlier, maybe not having a door in her new home office, you know, a lot of people have additional challenges working from home.
Yeah.
Whether it's also caring for young children, concern about elderly relatives, older kids potentially doing exams. There's a lot of other things going on, and all of that is ramping up the levels of stress and anxiety, and potentially putting people, as I say, over that tipping point into really potential burnout territory where people really develop emotional exhaustion. So I think it's really, really important as a leader in an organization to really reach out to your people, to show that you care, to consider how you can continue to connect with people, even in a social manner, you know, like bake-offs and fun, keeping that culture of fun and social activity in the workplace. I think considering reward and recognition structures is extra important now that people are working remotely. You know, I always say that I've met a lot of people over the years who've really suffered from negative stress and have been sort of beaten down by life, I suppose, in general. It's very seldom you meet somebody who's been overvalued and overappreciated and overrecognized. And as human beings, we all crave a little bit of recognition. We all crave, you know, a kind word, and you know, to be acknowledged, I suppose, and recognized and really valued. And the last thing I want to say, Brian, is really that, you know, it's really important to understand that in these challenging times, good enough has to be good enough. You need to cut yourself some slack. It's not about being perfect. There's a lot of extra things going on that are challenging us. So, you know, even to focus at the end of each day on 3 things that went well, you know, to just stay grateful, stay present, stay hopeful for a better future. But, you know, thinking and writing down 3 things you feel grateful for can be a tremendous way to recharge from stress and boost your inner sense of fulfillment. And, you know, to understand that a good enough day is good enough.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm a big fan of that, kind of writing down 3 either tasks to do tomorrow or 3 tasks, 3 achievements that I've completed today. And it is a nice way kind of almost to help you switch off that evening and kind of to show gratitude as well for the day. But I think, yeah, perfect is the enemy of done in this example. Good enough is good enough, as you said.
It is. And even writing down 3 things at nighttime, you know, it's been shown not only does it help you recharge from stress, it can actually help your sleep and give you a more restorative night's sleep, which of course is so important for your well-being as well. So it's really, really a good thing to do.
That certainly does work for me. I feel like I have 3 tasks to do the next day. It's almost like by writing them down, I'm getting them out of my head. So hopefully it'll allow me to have a better night's sleep. I know they're on that piece of paper and they're still waiting for me the next morning. Brilliant. Thank you for that, Mark. I'll bring in our final panelist now. So Dr. Coleman Noctor is a child and adolescent psychoanalyst and mental health nurse at St. Patrick's Mental Health Services with over 24 years national and international experience. His special interest areas are mental health and technology and eating disorders. So Coleman is a part-time assistant professor in TCD and lectures on the MSc in child, adolescent and family mental health. So Coleman, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
And how are you, first of all? And I see you're in the hospital. You're still going into the hospital?
Yeah, I've got a breakdown between working from home maybe 2 days a week and then here in the hospital kind of on the front line the other three. But yeah, look, it's really difficult. They're difficult times. Hard to know which is harder sometimes, whether it's home or work. They both present their own challenges. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of worry out there. There's a lot of anxiety. People are worrying both economically. They're worrying about their health. They're worrying about certainty of where they're going to be in a few weeks' time. Yeah, there's a lot of stress for people out there, and we're trying our best to try and firefight through it. But unless anyone is 114 years old and has been through the Spanish flu, we're all kind of going through this for the first time. And so the expertise is going to be, it's what we can do at the time and what information we have available to us. But yeah, we're trying our best to support people as much as possible.
Fantastic. Yeah. And we've spoken, we introduced, kind of what some of the organizations are doing. We've spoken a bit about the individual at the individual level as well, and kind of we're all facing these challenges and our people within our organizations. But our children are facing these challenges too, and different challenges and different struggles. Would you have any advice for the parents and for the children themselves? What can we be doing to support our little ones at this moment in time?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, our children's worries are very different to ours from the point of view. They're not concerned about surges and numbers and pandemics. They're more concerned about, where did my football go? I was doing my dance classes on a Thursday and that all stopped. And you have to remember, children had very little warning about this. They went to school on a Thursday and told them they weren't going back on Friday. And there's a loss and there's a grief in that as well. And I think children they're doing really well. I'm actually really proud of the children of Ireland, if that's possible to say, because they are adjusting to this very, without causing too much of a fuss. But they may be worried about things that we're not sure of. And I think the approach would be for parents to kind of check in with children. And I know we all have a very spectrum of worries, from those of us who may not be going back to a job in a week's time, or may have lost loved ones, but missing your sport and missing your structure is important for children. And I suppose it's really important that we just acknowledge that it's a difficult time for them, and trying to find cultures at home that feel safe in a time that we're outside the home can feel very unsafe is really important. And it was lovely what Ian was saying there about getting to spend that time together and trying to connect, and that's really important. But there's always a dial of this stuff. Like, too much of something can be stressful as well. And I would say to anyone who's trying to work from home, to reschedule that in your head, that you're parenting from work as opposed to working from home. It's a very different thing if you're working from home and you've no children there, and it's just a different geographical setting where you're doing your work. But when you're parenting and you're trying to work and do meetings while somebody's shouting for Cocoa Pops and spilling milk and all the rest, it's a very different challenge as well. And I think as parents, there's so much stress, in terms of homeschooling now thrown into the mix. And you're on the WhatsApp groups and seeing that Mary is after doing 4 hours of Latin this morning, and you're trying to keep up with trying to keep them fed. I mean, I go back to Mark's point. I mean, good enough is good enough. I think we're in a period of survival psychologically, and that's about as much as we can cope for at the moment. And our well-being strategies need to be about enhancing our ability to get through this, as opposed to striving and thriving. I think that might be an expectation too far at the moment. But yeah, I mean, there's challenges all around, and for people who are working and people who are not working and people who are working from home and working in the front line, all these challenges are relative to your own experience.
Excellent. Yeah. And so permission now for me there from that, not to feel guilty about only squeezing in the 3 hours of Latin with my daughter this morning before this webinar. So thank you for that. And I've seen you, it's kind of related. You spoke previously about the parenting triangle. Let's see if I have it here. In pre-COVID-19 days, that would have been keeping yourself sane, your kids happy, and your house clean. And so I guess we're adding the homeschooling or parenting from work now to that. I mean, that's the additional challenge we're talking about now.
Yeah, the whole point of the parenting triangle is you can only have two, of the three. So you either have your own sanity, happy children, and a dirty house, but you can't have all three. I mean, and again, what we've got to do in this is we've got to align our priorities. We've got to make sure that our value systems and our cultures reflects, first of all, our own emotional health, our own family values, our own sense of safety, and then we can work on the trimmings after that. But it is about prioritizing what is the most important thing for us. And at home, oftentimes that's your family culture, the containment of the children, the management of your own relationships, because relationships are under phenomenal pressure at the moment. People with adult children, teenage children who are, almost cocooning and missing their pals and missing their sport, and parents who are really worried about the future and the economy and everything else. So we've got to find a way of surviving that, and like, the fun or a bit of comedy or a bit of relief, not to be checking the social media stuff all the time, not to have a COVID-19 stream of conversation being the only one that's going around the house, and trying to dilute the things that are still important. And although the priority system might be dictated to us, we almost need to take control of that and decide on what is important to us as individuals, and try and align our value system along that, I think.
Brilliant, yeah. And I'll put a question out maybe to everyone, to all panelists. We've kind of spoken about how we've adapted organizationally and then as individually, and in terms of our children as well. What can we do now again in terms of for looking after our people from a business point of view, but also as individuals? What can we be doing now to prepare for that return to the workplace, or that return to school? And the return to the workplace, I'm hearing people call it like reboarding. So not onboarding, but reboarding our employees, our people back into the workplace. How can we start preparing for that? Would anybody like to take that?
Well, Brian, Coleman made a very interesting point there when he spoke about grief, particularly in the context of children losing out on sport and that sense of loss. And I think there is a really good point to be made about grief per se. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a brilliant lady, she wrote a book about the 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and acceptance. And you may not go through those 5 stages in that particular order, but you do eventually get to acceptance. I think that's a really important point, to accept the reality of where you find yourself right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the essence of a resilient mindset, that acceptance becomes the starting point to move forward one step and one day at a time. And David Kessler then wrote another book when he spoke about the 6th stage of grief, which he called meaning. And meaning really allows us to grow from our adversity. Meaning allows us not just to bounce back, but to actually to bounce forward with a renewed sense of priorities, maybe with refocusing on our values, what matters most to us. And I know from patients and conversations I've been having over the last few weeks that there is a resetting of the dial for many people in terms of how they find meaning, what matters most to them, and how things are going to change for them going forward in terms of their priorities. So I think, Viktor Frankl, anyone listening, if you haven't read his book, please read his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He escaped the depravity of his Nazi captors, and he wrote about it, about how really in the final essence, freedom is really about our power to choose how to respond in any given moment. And that idea that we can focus on what we can control and that we can choose to respond rather than react, I think is really the hallmark of meaning. And I really think that is the key to resilience, to understand that right now it's not about, as Coleman said, thriving and surviving. It's about surviving. It's about good enough being good enough. It's about really getting through and really holding on to that idea of meaning, and that this too shall pass.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love that book. That's an incredible book, isn't it? Viktor Frankl's book. I can thoroughly recommend that as well. So thank you for that, Mark. So as individuals, our priorities, the meaning we're looking for has probably shifted, has changed. Would that be something similar from the organizational level in William Fry? Catherine, have priorities changed? Will the kind of way you work have changed when you do start reboarding?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's something that's not unique for William Fry. I think this is something that all employers are thinking about. Certainly we have discovered very quickly that many roles are capable of being very productive done remotely, and any reservations that we might have had about remote working have been disproved to a large extent. And I think similar to what Mark is saying in terms of refocusing our values, I mean, I know personally that I have really cherished the extra time I've had with my children, and, you know, for the first time being able to sit down and have lunch and dinner with them has been a joy. And like many employees, it would be hard just to turn around and give that all up again in the future, you know. So I think that employers are going to have to and should use this as a positive time to look at their organization, to look at their structure, and to learn from this. I think, you know, adaptability and flexibility are going to be key, because I think what a lot of employers are going to find in the not so distant future will be a lot of requests for remote working. And so organizations should be thinking about, well, how are we going to respond to those requests? What jobs can be done remotely, and what other changes do we need to make to our organizations? And I think in terms of the bigger question about the gradual return to work, obviously health and safety is the priority, and William Fry, like all employers, will follow the government guidance and the HSE guidance, and it will probably be a staggered return, maintaining social distance. So again, I think that will be a change, because for so long we were looking at how to make our workspaces more collaborative, how to have areas that would encourage our employees to come together over a cup of tea or over you know, a sofa, and we're going to have to change all that perhaps. So now is the time really to be thinking about all those things and to bring our employees along with us on that journey, because I think the worst thing would be is if we expect our employees to suddenly go from this situation to attending for work without them really fully understanding what that's going to look like, what's going to be expected of them. So as I said, it's all about adaptability and flexibility and planning.
Yeah, excellent. It is really a unique situation. I never thought I would be, you know, unable to join a meeting because I hadn't finished reading the Gruffalo or, you know, something like that. So it certainly is unique, some unique experiences, and it will be different, I think, when we do go back. A few of the questions that are coming in through on the Q&A there are related to, and we don't want to frighten anybody, but I guess kind of the legal aspects around our working environment at the moment and our kind of working from home. Would there be any kind of legal aspects employers should kind of make themselves aware of at this time in terms of the remote working environment for their employees?
I mean, I'm going to go with what Mark said again, though, in terms of good enough, you know. There's the ideal world, and then there's the world that we're living in at the moment. So there are legal obligations, certainly, as regards working hours and recording the hours that our employees are working and making sure they're taking their rest breaks and so on and so forth. But look, I think that we need to be flexible here, and, you know, we just need to do what we can do. We need to remind our employees to take their breaks, to take their rests, to not be working excessive hours. And then that's kind of goes hand in hand with making sure that we can be flexible in that approach to allow for other requirements at home, such as parenting and homeschooling, to show flexibility in that regard. And so another legal obligation would be in terms of the workspace at home. So the Health and Safety at Work Act continues to apply. So employers are obliged to make sure employees have a safe place of work, whether that be at home or in the office. And so strictly speaking, you are required to carry out an assessment of the home working space. But look, we're in exceptional circumstances. So what some employers have been doing is sending out online assessments and asking employees to assess their workspace themselves, or send them out tips about remote working to make sure that they're sitting properly, so, you know, they're not putting their backs at risk, that kind of thing, and offering them a support person, perhaps dedicated to that aspect. So, you know, along the mantra of good enough, I think those are the kind of things that we can be doing. And online training is a good thing for all of these things, whether it be health and safety or whether it be security of documents. That would be another legal obligation employers should be mindful of in terms of confidentiality. So online courses are a great way to deal with those kinds of things from home.
Fantastic. Yes, some great advice there, especially the online assessment and ergonomic guidelines that employers can share. So thank you for that, Catherine. Ian, anything from Keating, anything you're preparing for, especially for welcoming employees back to work? You might actually be getting back sooner rather than around some other industries.
Yeah, we're lucky that some of our jobs have gone back to work, but I suppose we still have a large cohort of people that aren't, and it's going to bring anxiety, because while there's an appetite to return back to work, the expectation is we'll return back to normal work, and that's not going to be the reality. And I think it's important that we start preparing our employees for what it might look like, as Catherine said there. And I think Mark has mentioned about loss. I think there's going to be a feeling of loss when people return to work, and it's not as it was before. We were lucky, so in the week up to the shutdown, we put in extra office space and put in extra canteen space and increased toilets and sites, and even in the offices we had to do that, but we had to take out the furniture from the canteen space so that people weren't sitting together, and we marked space on the ground so they could stand there 2 meters apart just to talk to each other. And the idea of going back to normal work, where people will be able to sit down and have the same camaraderie, it'll be great, but it won't be the old way of working, and we need to prepare people for that. And I think it's important that we start thinking about it now, because a lot of people are quite excited on what's going to happen on the 5th of May, that normality is going to come back, and that's not the reality. And I think it's important around that. And I suppose, look, we've been concentrating a lot on optimum performance when we're normally at work, and at the minute it's more about just making sure people are their best through this. So I do think people feel a loss. They will have adjusted to a way of life that wasn't normal at the minute, and now that's going to be taken from almost suddenly again. And simple things like the routine. And we send out a lot of information about preparing yourself for working from home and how to be your best at home, and doing different things like keeping your routine, getting up and getting dressed for work. And over time that slips away. You slip into your tracksuit rather than putting on your shirt going to work. And now we've a routine after 3 or 4 weeks of getting up maybe 9 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock, and now to try and go back into that of a sudden. So it's going to be tough. I think the kids might adjust, and one might be better on this, but they might adjust to going back to school a bit more, because they're used to having a summer period of being at home, and then back to this is disruptive. But look, there's a lot of good stuff out there. We're preparing our people to try and keep normality and try and keep engaged. And the challenges that we spoke about around the kids has been the biggest challenge we've seen for working at home. How do we give stuff to our employees that our kids can do? And I think as employers, we probably have more ability to look at that stuff than parents do at home. So I think if we take some time and identify activities that kids can do, and we've been lucky at a local level of the stuff we've been able to engage with. We've engaged with a local gym who's doing online cardiovascular exercises. Mm-hmm. We've said to look at the kids at home watching this. So they've changed the music and they've got the kids involved. So it's now a 30-40 minute cardiovascular exercise that the parents are doing, the kids are doing. That's a good bit of the day gone. We started to look at a local bakery here, the Pentry. They're doing an online baking, and it's just a matter of they send out the ingredients the night before and they do the online during the day, so the kids can be involved and parents can be involved. And that's what's really been very positive about this. When there was an opportunity for a lot of businesses to probably, I suppose, maximise potential of profits, they haven't. They've cut all the costs. They've opened up stuff. We've introduced mindfulness through Susan Keane, online, which we never thought we'd be able to do. And people were afraid of mindfulness. What is it? Now they know. And it's been great to afford opportunities to do things differently. And I think we just need to be prepared to how we're going to do things differently as we move forward from the 5th of May.
Yeah, certainly lots of positives coming from it. And it'll be interesting to see how different companies react to bringing their people back into the workplace. Yeah, I'm not 100. I don't know if it'll be as easy for the children to adjust in coming back to school. I guess it depends on the person, of course, and the family. And my own daughter started in primary school this year, and she must think it's just the strangest year ever, this kind of school thing. We're in the lucky position now. She got on really well and she really loved school. But I guess bad habits kind of are creeping in. The routine you mentioned is kind of gone out the window now. So I mean, I'm sure she will be okay getting back into school, but I'm not sure. I guess it'll be challenging, especially for those maybe parents whose children struggled initially in school. Any thoughts on that one, Coleman?
Yeah, I mean, I think for every good thing, there's a consequence in some respects. And children, I'd love to say they'll run back, but what children actually value way more than things is time. And from the point of view of we've been such a time poor society up until now, they've kind of got loads of time. And going back to creches, childcare, getting back into the humdrum of school, children whose struggle with that will struggle with it. We see this on Sunday nights. We see it at the end of summer holidays. We see them, the return to school after Christmas period. This is quite a prolonged period of time where they've had quite a lot of time and a lot of visibility. And of course, there's boredom elements and there's downsides to that. But we have to, as employers, I think we need to be able to integrate that return to the normal and allow people to kind of wean off that a little bit, because I think that's going to be quite an adjustment. And I don't think it should be like the big switch is on and we're back in on Tuesday and you're back to childcare 7 days a week or 5 days a week and whatever the case may be. So they will need a little bit of adjustment for that. And actually, consequently, probably the better the time off with family, the harder the return in some respects. But yeah, I definitely think it's probably a conversation for later, but I think we have to think about restarting this and how we go back into it, and as employees, employers, and I mean, there's a lot of mental ill health out there at the moment, and like at the moment, they're like the things we would advise people to do in terms of feeling productive, having structure, socially connecting, meeting up with friends, meeting up with pals, all that stuff is, a lot of it's unavailable to us. So from a well-being point of view, when you're looking through your list of advice and suggestions as a therapist, you're running off a fairly kind of short list. But the outside of cabin fever is it can become dependent, and for children who have spent long times within a cocoon or a bubble, they begin to rely on that. And especially the more we kind of make the outside scary, and you know, small children are feeling like if they go outside they'll catch this virus, and the way in which we communicate to children about what they can do to manage their own self-responsibility is really important. And that's why, again, these conversations need to be had at home around the return, and almost expecting us to get back to that. And although it's more difficult when we don't have a date or we don't have a certainty around that, the notion and the concept of the return should always be you know, thereabouts in the conversation, so that children know that it will happen and they can prepare themselves a little bit for it.
Okay, yeah, and I guess there's been a bit of talk of perhaps the schools might come back a day or two a week to begin with, and that might be something that would be helpful. But like you said, we don't know yet, so maybe a bit of certainty around that would be really helpful. Thanks for all your contributions. Time really does fly. The most popular question that has come in by far has been related to Workplace Wellbeing Day. So it's still going to be Workplace Wellbeing Day on the 1st of May. So next, not tomorrow, but Friday week. So, and the questions coming in thick and fast are for the panelists are, could you suggest any interesting initiatives that employers could support their employees with while they're working remotely at this time? So maybe if each panelist might suggest something, and I think it's potentially a unique opportunity to do something really different this year and involve the children or the spouses as well. So maybe is there any suggestions from each of the panelists, if you want to just again kind of finish up and say a few last words? Don't be shy now.
It's going to be a different year this year, Brian. It's going to be, we've started to look at it, and we're wondering what we can do collectively. And yeah, such a variety of people there. One of the suggestions that's come up is, I don't know if you've seen the trend of these TikTok challenges on Facebook. You know, they're doing a dancing, and we tried to replicate one of them here, and it was a resounding disaster. But it's quite fun in the mistakes we made. So we're trying to set up a TikTok challenge to try and get families involved and just record it and just share it, because it'll take a bit of time to get it right. So that'll pass a bit of time to make sure they're physically active, they're doing something together, and then we can all have a good laugh at it through the business. So it's just about doing different things. Some of our families have set up obstacle courses, and they're sharing them, and they're racing each other virtually online, that sort of stuff. So it's going to be different, but I think the TikTok challenge is going to be the one that's going to be hardest for us to try and do, and it'll be a bit of fun. So we're going to try that one.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, that's a great idea. TikTok challenge. Yeah. Any suggestions, Catherine?
Well, I love the idea of the TikTok challenge. Actually, my kids are well into TikTok, so I could maybe bring that one up. But I think looking at ones that we have done in the past that have worked well, as I said, the Bake Off really did, because we were able to get the kids involved in the cooking, and they were involved in the virtual judging as well. And we've introduced a weekly quiz in William Fry. And we have, I know my team has a WhatsApp group that is purely personal related. So I'm thinking to myself, I might kind of put a shout out to them to see what they might like for the day itself. But yeah, other initiatives I'd be really, really happy to hear about as well. And fitness challenges would obviously be a good thing as well to keep us moving and keep us active.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Brian, Maya Angelou, some of your listeners will have heard of her. She was a brilliant American poet and writer. And she said, as you go through life and you look at your two hands, you realize that one hand is to care for others and the other hand is to care for yourself. And I think that could be a great theme for Workplace Wellbeing Day. Organizations getting their people to do something individually that adds up to something collective to support others. And I was just thinking about many of the excellent charities we have in Ireland that are really struggling right now. Pieta House springs to mind, but there are many others. And it was Daffodil Day relatively recently, and they've lost their normal sources of funding and their sources of revenue. So perhaps organizations could think about some innovative, fun way or activity that they could support one of these very worthy charities, and not only create a sense of camaraderie and collegiality among themselves, but help others in the community who are less fortunate, who aren't working right now, who may be very vulnerable. And, giving always starts the receiving process.
That's a really great point, Mark. And thank you for bringing that up. And you mentioned Pieta House and a few other charities. I'd also like to give a shout out to Sea Change Ireland, who will have lost the Green Ribbon campaign, which takes place usually every year in the month of May. So that won't be happening now. They will be doing something different later in the year, but shout out to Sea Change Ireland to do fantastic work in the area of mental health and breaking down the stigma around that as well. So thank you for sharing that, Mark. Great idea.
Thanks.
Coleman.
Yeah, I just think any workplace well-being initiative is kind of an extension of workplace culture. And I think if you're just letting your employees know that, look, we acknowledge things are difficult and we're all in this together. And I think, acknowledging the challenge, but I like Ian's idea of making it fun and almost saying that, the collective bit of crack is a very Irish thing. And even though we can't socially be close together, we can still laugh together remotely. And I think, there's been a lot of limitations, and I would have a lot of concerns about our use of technology over the last while. But I think if COVID-19 is to teach us anything, is that we actually can use this to help ourselves, as opposed to it just being something that appeals to our lizard brain. And, I hope afterwards we do come out of this with a reevaluated system of how we relate to each other, and that in and of itself, our work culture, like I've never valued my colleagues at the water cooler more than I have now. And where you'd be kind of months ago trying to avoid someone, now I just only love to chat with someone now. So I think the absence makes the heart grow fonder. But so coming in collectively, remotely, or within whatever, to have a bit of crack, I think is the most important thing. And how you do that is less important than the spirit and the culture of it, to be honest.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, lovely way to finish up. Thank you for that. So the spirit and the culture of it more than anything. Listen, I'm going to put up just a final slide to say thank you to everybody. I've got a thank you slide. Oh yeah, just to point you. So next webinar we're targeting, I hope you enjoyed this, because I didn't get to nearly as many questions as I would have liked. That was probably the quickest hour of my entire life. May 19th, 12 p.m. again, we're going to go for another webinar. I'll come back to you with the theme for that. That online training that I mentioned starts on Tuesday evening. Send me an email if you're interested in learning more. All online, 9 online sessions. Drop me a line, I will fill you in on the details. Again, here's the details. Join the community if you'd like to ask a question online. And there's the website and my own email. So just I want to thank everybody, to thank our panelists for that amazing contribution, for making my life very easy there. Ian Lynch, Catherine O'Flynn, Dr. Coleman Noctor, and Dr. Mark Rowe. I'm sure there's rounds of applause echoing out all over the country now from all of our attendees. So thank you very much, guys. And a huge shout out again to all my partners. That's Irish Life Health and to AJ Products for all their support. And looking forward to working with you and improving and developing the event series and the webinar series throughout 2020. And a big shout out to all of our attendees, everybody that signed up, anyone that's watching live and anyone that's going to watch the recording as well. Thanks so much. If you do like it, share it with your friends, tell all your friends about it. I'm going to go through all the questions and the chat in the panel as well. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So thank you again for that. So listen, guys, stay safe, stay socially distant, and stay connected with colleagues and friends and family. And we'll chat to you again soon. So thank you.
Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.